God is so good and so awesome. So for those of you that are just joining us, we are in the middle of a series called Simplify. And if you've missed weeks 1 and 2, then I urge you. I think it is so good and so worth it. So just visit our website, victorychurchma.com, and you can catch up on those first 2 episodes that you might have missed. Now, simplify. Seems so simple, right? But it's ironic that God would choose a vessel that likes to overcomplicate things to speak about simplifying things. In fact, as I get ready, I'm reminded of this one time when all 3 of my kids were in braces. So we had doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, orthodontist appointments. We had optometrist appointments and any number of appointments. And I thought one time, well, why not just make everything easy and just try to get as many appointments in one day as possible? And so with all good intention, I scheduled, one of my child's orthodontist appointment and another one. I said, oh, you know what? Well, the dentist is not that far, so we'll just do that child's dentist appointment on the same day. And then, well, hey, just around the corner is the doctor's office. Why not just schedule the annual visit and visit the pediatrician on the same day? And, oh, wow, look at this. I got 17 minutes in between. Let's call Pastor Chris and say, would you like me to do something, get something done for the church? Because I got 17 minutes free in between everything. Well, that turned out not to be a very good idea because I ended up taking the wrong kid to the wrong doctor on the wrong day. It was all scheduled for one day, but apparently I read 3-2, which is March 2nd if you're American, but 3-2 if you're Canadian is the 3rd of February. I'm Canadian. So that turned out to be a wonderful, wonderful lesson in why we should not overcomplicate our lives. We should be simplifying, and what better time to think about simplifying than at the beginning of the year. And so we started looking at a book called Ecclesiastes, written by King Solomon towards the end of his life. And he is actually telling us life can be made to be about so many things. But really, in essence, if you strip away the layers and look deep down below, it's just one thing. It's actually very simple. And so we started week 1 when Pastor Chris took us through the whole first chapter of Ecclesiastes, and we saw how we start to simplify by saying no to self. See, we got to dethrone ourselves. It's not about us. You and I, we play a very big role in this thing called life, but ultimately, the story is not about you. It's not about me. It's actually about God. It's God's story, and you and I have a part to play in it. And the sooner we learn that, the better it is for us. So we start by taking the focus off of ourselves. We say no to self. We love God first, and we love Him most. And we make sure that we get that right, because that's the first step to simplifying life. And then last week, Pastor Lou showed us that although life is about the pursuit of pleasure, immediate gratification of meaningless pleasure isn't actually going to make life better. I mean, if you think about it, often complicates things, right? We have got to figure out and get it right in our hearts that this Christian living isn't about immediate gratification. It's actually about self-denial. Jesus himself said, if you are my disciples, what do? You deny yourself, you pick up your cross, then you follow after me, follow after him, right? You may think, well, I'll just say yes to everything that seems pleasurable. Live life the way I want. Coast through it all. But you can't. Solomon tried it. And we actually saw his disastrous ending in 1 Kings chapter 11. Pastor Lou took us there. He had so many wives, they turned his heart away from God, and God was not pleased with Solomon's end, right? And so we think that pleasures, immediate pleasures, are going to do something. They're going to satiate that longing on the inside, but they actually don't. They complicate things because we're not called to a life of self-gratification. We're called to a life of self-denial. So Pastor Lou taught us, say no to immediate pleasures. Now, you're probably sitting here at this point and say, but PG, I do love Jesus. I do love him. I love him first, and I love him most in my life. I do. I so want to. And you know what? I am trying my best, my level best, to live a life of self-denial. I examine every pleasure that comes my way. And I think about it before I make a choice. I'm trying to say no. I'm trying to live consciously and pick meaningful pleasures rather than give in to immediate pleasures. But in spite of doing all of this, life still isn't simple. I feel constrained at times. I feel stressed out. I feel like I'm swinging from one pendulum side to the other pendulum, just going with it, hanging on for dear life, hoping that I don't fall off any moment. And this is how my life is. I just keep swinging, PG. Life, I'm sorry to say, feels at times meaningless and aimless. And today, I want to talk to you about saying no to aimless living. See, we're not quite there, friends. We can't take one or two or three as isolated principles and try to make sense of it all. It all needs to come together. Let me see if I can give you a basket, and maybe this basket will make sense. So first week, when we said no to self, you know what we did? We got our priorities straight. We put God first. We love Him first, and we love Him most. We got our priorities straight. And then second week, when we said no to immediate pleasures, and we said, no. I don't want to live just gratifying every single whim I have. I want to live a life of self-denial. What we were really doing is we decided we were going to pursue heavenly treasures over earthly pleasures. That's what we did. We talked about pursuits. In other words, if I get my priorities straight, it's going to flow into my pursuits. I'm going to make better choices because they're based on a greater priority, right? Now, we got the first two parts right, but you need the third component. And this third component is about purpose. Because without purpose, everything, as Solomon said in chapter 1, is meaningless. We need purpose. We love Jesus first. We love Him most. We want to live this life of self-denial. But we need purpose. We need to learn to say no to aimless living. Now, purpose is the topic we talk about all the time in this church. But here's what we tend to do. We tend to talk about it in a macro way. The grand purpose of it. Oh, yeah, it's all about the Great Commission. And I got to go out and make disciples. And that's great. That's beautiful. That's true. It is about the macro, but it's also about the micro. It's about your day-to-day moments. It needs to flow into both. Purpose needs to flow into and out of both. And this is where Solomon is now taking us. He's trying to talk to us. You got your priorities, right? You want to pursue the right things. Now let's talk about purpose. So go with me to Ecclesiastes chapter 3. And we're going to sit in the first few verses of Ecclesiastes chapter 3 for a while. And this is how Solomon starts. He actually uses beautiful poetry, and these are the times, if you did have access to some of the original languages, you can actually see how beautifully it flows. And here's what he says. He says, there is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. There's a time for everything. And then look at this rhythm. I want you to just feel the rhythm, okay? There's a time to be born, and there's a time to die. There's a time to plant, and a time to uproot. There's a time to kill and a time to heal. There's a time to tear down and a time to build. There's a time to weep and there's a time to laugh. There's a time to mourn and there's a time to dance. There's a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them. There's a time to embrace. There's also times to refrain from embracing. There's a time to search. And there's actually a time to give up. There's a time to keep and a time to throw away. There's a time to tear and a time to mend. There's a time to be silent and there's a time to speak. There's actually times to love and there's a time to hate. There's a time for war and a time for peace. I hope you felt the rhythm of that beautiful poetry. It almost feels like a metronome. Have you seen one of those little instruments that you keep on a piano if you're practicing, if you're taking guitar lessons, or even if you're taking drum lessons? You got to keep the beat, right? And that's what Solomon is doing. Do you feel the rhythm, the beat of life? You don't miss it. It just keeps going. And I can step out at any time, but it just keeps going. This is actually a literary poetic device. It's called an anaphora. You may not have heard it, but you've certainly used it. We use it all the time in speech. In fact, famous people have used it and made it famous. For example, Julius Caesar, in his letter to the Roman Senate, he said, "We came, we saw," finish it with me, "we conquered, we. You feel the rhythm, right? He said it a certain way to feel the punch. Charles Dickens, in his great literary masterpiece, Tale of Two Cities, started his beautiful work with these words. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief. It was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light. It was the season of darkness. There's something about putting it like that. You literally feel it. This is what you're supposed to feel emotionally. Remember that pendulum that we talked about at the beginning? Well, my friends, it's there by deliberate divine design. See, Solomon's use of anaphora, the way he uses that word, time for this, time for that, time for this, time for that, time for this, time for that. You can almost feel the tick-tock, tick-tock, the pendulum swinging from one side to the other. And Solomon does that very deliberately. And if you notice that list, it's polar opposites. Time to be born, well, time to die. There's a time to kill or wound or be wounded, and then there's a time to heal. There's a time to weep. There's a time to laugh. There's a time to build up. There's a time to tear down. You notice that they're all polar opposites. Why? Because, number one, he wants to show you, using this anaphora of time, that life is a variety of seasons. They're very opposite seasons. And we will most likely swing between these seasons. But life is about a variety of seasons. We can't live in summer all day long, every day, for the rest of my life. We can't do that. It's a variety of seasons. But it's more, the swing between the positive and the negative. What? In life, you can be certain of two things: joy and pain. Light and darkness. Ups and downs. Mountains and valleys. You can be certain of it. That's by deliberate divine design. And then Solomon uses anaphora, the anaphora of time, to show us what? There is a continuity. There's a continuity of life cycle. Because there's a time to be born and a time to die. Let's close the book and let's go home because all's done. But he says, no, hang on, but there's a time to plant. Oh, good, that's good. But then there's a time to uproot. Oh, yeah, but hang on. There's a time to be wounded. Oh, I don't like that. Yeah, but there's a time to heal. Oh, good. Do you feel this? Like every mountain is followed by a valley, but hang on. Don't worry, hope's around the corner. Oh, there comes the mountain. But don't get settled there because, there comes the valley. Oh, but don't. He's trying to show you there's a continuity to this cycle, right? And this is why he uses this very poetic device to show us it's there. It's fixed. And you and I can try to kid ourselves and say, well, yeah, I'm going to change that because I don't like it. Choose positivity. You can't. You choose to make positive choices that glorify God, but if you ever see that silly meme on Facebook or TikTok or Instagram, please don't like it because none of us can choose positivity. Right? It doesn't happen that way. God sovereignly arranges every detail of man's life. God is the one who fixes the pendulum swing. I don't like this valley. And God says, hold on, you got 2 more weeks in the valley before the mountain comes. You got 2 more years. You got 10 more years. I don't know. But God fixes the pendulum swing. Now, Solomon states this in a very beautiful, poetic way, and then he actually gets into the details about this living in the midst of the pendulum swing. Now, if you have a Bible like mine that actually shows you the verse, I wish I could lift it up and show it to you. But depending on the translation you have, you'll notice the way it's actually listed, one below another. It's a list. And then you get to verse 9, and again, in most Bibles you can see this, it changes. Now there's no list anymore, because now he's going to explain the list, right? So he gives you the list to make a point, to get your attention. He wants you to show life is constantly changing, but there is a rhythm. Life is sometimes hard, but you got to live in the rhythm. You got to keep that beat going, right? You just have to know that God has designed it this way. God has fixed our times. He has appointed the rhythms, and there is a time for everything under the sun. He has arranged every moment, what should happen, when it should happen, for how long it should happen. And then he says, but for all of it, there's a reason why it happened. And if you pay attention, you will understand that all these fixed and divinely orchestrated times are beyond our control, and yet they are entirely for our benefit. They are beyond your control, but they're entirely for your benefit. So stop with me before we go any further and just really, really ponder that deep truth. If God holds all the pieces of our life, right? Every piece, because that's what we just said. Every pendulum swing is set by him. Every moment is controlled by him. Then, if God's hand is in everything, why should we not leave everything in God's hand? If God's hand is truly in everything, why do we not truly leave everything in God's hand? Why the worry? Why the anxiety? Why the great consternation and doubt and whining and venting? I can't do this anymore. Life is horrible. And why? Why? He controls all the pieces of our life. God has appointed everything. Priorities, pursuits, purpose. There's a divine purpose for everything under the sun. Nothing is outside of God's control. Everything falls into its place in due season. In fact, it didn't just start here in Ecclesiastes. Solomon isn't giving something, oh my gosh, this is mind-blowingly great. No, it's not. He's actually stating a principle that's been in effect since creation. What did God do? He was so methodical. Day 1, day 2, day 3, go read Genesis. Everything had its appointed day. He put the stars and the moon for due seasons, it says. He put seeds inside the fruit of fruit-bearing trees. Why? That they would bring out fruit in due season. And then everything went wrong when the serpent came. And he talked to Eve, and everything got messed up. And what did God say? In due season, I will crush your head, he told the serpent. When was Jesus proclaimed? Before the foundations of the earth. Oh my goodness, God had it all figured out. We're sitting here going, oh wow, what's going to happen on the next page? Right? But he's already figured it out. And then what happened? When the children of Israel ended up being taken, they ended up in Egypt, and now they are captive in Egypt, and they're slaves of Pharaoh, and they're crying out. 400 years have passed. Joseph has died. The book of Exodus opens, and they are groaning under the weight of slavery, and they're crying out to God, and God says, aha! The time has come. To do what? To bring my people out of Egypt. Appointed time. At the right time, in the right way, with the right person. Moses, but you know what? I need him to have skills. Oh, he needs to grow up in the palace. He can't. He's not an Egyptian. No problem. I got to figure it out. He ends up growing up in the palace. And then he ends up bringing his people, God's people, out of Egypt. And then we get to the book of Leviticus, right? Where all the laws are explained. And in Leviticus 23, God tells us there are feasts of the Lord, holy convocations, that you need to practice and proclaim at, again, appointed times. He gave them things to do. Passover at a specific time. You know, the Festival of Weeks at a specific time. Why? Because I want you to stop in that moment and recall and think about what I did for you. In Numbers 9, it says, let the people of Israel keep the Passover at its appointed time. In Psalm 102, it says, you will arise and have compassion on Zion, for it is time to show favor to her. Your appointed time has come. At the right time, the right prophet came to speak to the king that was on the throne to say, look, he's coming. Who? The Messiah is coming. He's coming. When? At the appointed time. Who knows? Nobody knows. But at God's time, he's coming. It's not happenstance. It's not haphazard. It is so precise. It will blow your mind, right? That's divine design. Habakkuk, chapter 2, the prophet writes, for still the vision awaits its appointed time. It hastens to the end. It will not lie. And even if it seems slow, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay. There's no getting away from God's appointed times. God is the one who's appointed it. Galatians 4. And when the set time had come, what happened? God sent his son, born of a woman, born of a virgin, born under the law. When? I don't know. I just flipped the page from Malachi to Matthew, and oh my gosh, there's Jesus. Okay, it wasn't oh my gosh to God. He had planned it. He knew exactly when Jesus would enter history. And even now, we're looking at crazy things happening all around us. Every time you turn on the news, there's some part of you inside that cringes because it's horrible. And God says, wait. He's coming again. When? At the right time. Well, when is that? That's not for you to know. You just trust me and you be ready. But the times are held in my hand. Throughout the New Testament, we see that there is an appointed time. God holds it in his control. Nobody can mess with it. Jesus will come again for you and for me. And everything wrong about this world will be set right on that day when every knee bows and every tongue confesses that he is God. This is the way God has decreed it. He sovereignly controls every pendulum swing of our life. So point number 1, God fixes the events of our life, and everything, therefore, has meaning. Everything? Okay. I don't know. There's a part of me that's now starting to feel control because there's some very meaningless things that happen in this world, PG. People get shot. People get hurt. Hurricanes, disasters, deaths in the thousands. God fixes the events of our life, and therefore, everything has meaning. Let's keep reading, and let's see if some of this actually makes sense. Verse 9, what do workers gain from their toil? All right, that's it. I'm not going to work tomorrow. See, Solomon said it right here. There's nothing to be gained. Aha! Hang on a second. Solomon, he uses majestic poetry, he uses wit, and he uses what you and I would call sarcasm or dramatic irony to ask questions. So he asks, what do we have to gain from all this toil if everything is fixed and I'm just, between the pendulum swings? Why? What is there to be gained from work? Well, he actually answers it. He says, Look what God says. He says, I have seen the burden God has laid on the human race. I've seen the burden. This doesn't sound, okay, it doesn't sound good till you actually go look at that word burden. It means inyan, that's the word in the Hebrew, inyan. It means occupation, but it's one of these. What we mean is occupation in quotes. He's like preoccupation. I'm so sorry to do this to you, but I'm going to give you a job. And you're like, what? I just need you to go out today and enjoy life. What? I'm so sorry, but can you just go out today and enjoy life? Like, that's the device that Solomon is using here. He's using something that we call sarcasm or dramatic irony to say, what do they gain from their toil? I've seen the burden that God has placed on the human race. What's the burden? Here it is, verse 11. Everybody ready? This is the grand burden that you and I have to carry all through life, and you are stuck with it. Ready, set, go. He has made everything beautiful in its time. That's the burden you and I have to carry. Why is it a burden? Because not everything feels beautiful when I'm going through it. Pain doesn't feel beautiful. I don't want to get crushed. I don't want to get disciplined. I don't want stuff taken away from me. I don't want to lose my loved ones. I don't want to witness suffering and pain. I don't want to see calamities happen in the world and feel helpless and I can't do anything about it. I don't want any of that. And yet, this is the burden God has laid on the human race. What is it? He has made everything beautiful in its time. Point number 2, God's appointed moments are beautiful in their own way. Why? Because they serve purposes that you and I cannot see. They do something to us. They mold us. They form us. With every squeezing and pouring and stretching, I'm becoming more like Jesus. With every calamity that's happening in the world, people are turning their attention to Jesus. With every single problem comes amazing solutions that advance the kingdom. I can only see one piece of the tapestry, and I can only see it from one side. I'm going to have to trust the master weaver till I get to heaven so I can see the entire thing from both sides and go, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. Yes. When did we decide pain is bad? When did we decide suffering serves no purpose? Because God is saying, no, this is the burden you and I have to carry. What is the burden? That God has made everything beautiful in its own way, in its own time. Look, I want to live on the mountains. I want to pitch my tent there, put my white picket fence. I want it to always be sunshine, occasional rain, but it has to be beautiful and the sun needs to come out and there needs to be a rain, but anyway, right? But I want to live on that mountain. And God says, no, you're going sledding down into the valley. And all I want to say is, I don't think so. And he says, no, I'm the one that's going to guide that sled. Get on. I don't want to go. Get on. There's no way you will understand me. There's no way you will lean into me. There's no way you will grow in your trust of me unless you're on that sled, holding on to me for dear life, whoosh, as we go downhill into the valley. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Let's keep reading. He has also set eternity in the human heart. Well, that's interesting. Why would he set eternity in our hearts? Why is it that even those that don't know Jesus, even those people that have never opened this book, never thought about what's going to happen to me after I die, even those people have this nagging problem in the back of their heads? What is there after this life? Is there anything after this life? God has put eternity in the hearts of man. Why? Because, point number 3, it keeps every moment and our longings in check. We have a tendency to always look on the other side, to look at that person over there. Hey, but the grass is just a little bit greener over there. I know that it's, and that guy, he's definitely got it better than me. It's not fair. Like that's part of our sin nature. It's just in there. But in Psalm 23, we know that it's the Lord who's our shepherd that takes you and me to green pastures. There is none greener. You are in the greenest pasture for you. But Sean's pasture is still greener. And he's got cows. And I don't have cows. That's just human nature. We want to compare this whole FOMO thing, right? If I don't just jump over here and do this and like put all my doctor's appointments in one day, then I don't know, I'm going to miss out on a beautiful day tomorrow. And God says, well, hang on a second. Hang on. I put eternity because every moment is not to be compared with somebody else's moment. Every moment is not even to be compared with your tomorrow or your yesterday. Your every moment is to be compared to eternity. We've got the wrong comparison going. I look at pain, it's for a moment. Because one day you and I will live in glory. All that joy, singing, dancing, that's your forever. And that's beautiful. And that's glorious. And you know what? This is why Paul, over and over again, he says, but for a moment, fleeting, suffering. It's just here today and God tomorrow, it's going to pass. No matter what you're going through, it's going to pass. That's just the truth of life. He emphasizes eternity because everything is orchestrated to have temporal meaning. If we don't view it and enjoy it against the backdrop of eternity, when I see my kids jumping and praising God, I think I want to see them in heaven doing this for eternity. See, it's not just this moment. Automatically, there's something over there, right? Joys and pleasures, pain and sorrow, everything against the backdrop of eternity. So what am I supposed to do when pain comes? Well, squeeze the lesson that you can out of it. Train yourself to ask these questions. Every time you encounter something you don't like, train yourself. Will this make me more like Jesus? If the answer is yes, and I'm gonna tell you, it's rigged, people. That question is a trick question. Because everything in life is gonna make you more like Jesus. Okay, so the answer is always yes. But ask yourself, nevertheless, every time you see it, will this make me more like Jesus? And the answer is yes. Well, there you go. That's why you're going through it. That's why you're going through it, right? God emphasizes eternity in every moment to keep our longings in check. Number 12, let's keep reading. I know that there is nothing better for people than to be happy and to do good while they live. That's it. Your job is to find joy. You find it. I don't feel it. Find it. I don't have any. Get with somebody who has more than they need. Right? That's why we do life together. Man, I didn't feel like jumping, but then my little friend, Samir, came up and started doing his and all I wanted to do was jump with him. And I'm like, if you jump, you're going to hurt your back. Your sciatica is going to go off, and you're not going to be able to preach. And I'm like, I can't help it. I'm going to jump because he's jumped. There's something contagious about joy. If you have joy, get around a few people, give it to them. If you don't have joy, get around a few people, get it from them. Right? This is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be happy, do good, do as much good as you can while you live, that each of them may eat and drink. In other words, go about your life. Go about your regular life. You're not supposed to sit in the corner and like, okay, well, it's that swing. I'm going to wait for the next pendulum to swing. I mean, that's not what you're supposed to do. Go about and live your life. Find satisfaction in everything you do. God wants you to enjoy life. God wants you to enjoy life, right? And what is this? What's the final thing? He says, this is the gift of God. And point number 4 is simply this. He wants you and he wants me to fully squeeze every satisfaction and enjoyment out of life, knowing and recognizing that life is a gift from him. It's a gift from him. Receive, use wisely, use thoroughly, recycle if possible. Right? But this is life. It's a gift from God. Enjoy it. Don't live with entitlement. He doesn't owe you. Don't live with unwarranted expectations. It's not about you. I didn't like the music at church today. Well, thank God you weren't sitting on the throne. God liked the worship. Right? It's not about you, and it's not about me. Don't live that way. He wants you to enjoy life, but recognize that it's a gift from him. And the last one, I know that everything God does will endure forever. Nothing can be added to it. Nothing can be taken from it. God does this so that people will fear him or revere him, honor him, exalt him. This is why God has it like this. I like a better translation. It says, forever, everything God wills will come to pass. We can't change it. I can't affect the birth or the passing of anybody in my life. I can't step in and say, everybody stop. COVID, I don't think so. 2020 is not a good time for COVID, Lord. Hold it. Said no one. We can't. Everything is set in place by God. He wills it and he brings it to pass. Point number 5, because it's God who gives meaning to all our moments. He gives lasting meaning to passing moments because of this backdrop of eternity. And that's how he changes our life from aimless to meaningful. But we got to recognize that whatever it is I'm going through has meaning and has value, right? He's got full control over everything, and he's infused his purpose through everything. Look, we got to get something straight. Nothing ever happens to us. It feels that way. All these bad things keep happening to me. No, nothing ever happens to you, but everything happens for you. If you didn't know it, you and I are the clay in the potter's hand, and he gets to squeeze and stretch and squash and mold and form. And the only thing that you should be thinking the whole time is, my goodness, he never takes his hand off that pot. Ever, ever. Masterful control. Because this is what life is. He is preparing us for his glory. We are not coming to him for our benefit. It's the other way around. He's molding and preparing us for his use, for his glory. Wealth, success, happiness, all of this, nothing is in our hands. My effort cannot secure any of them. It's the will of God. He gives, he takes away. He blesses, and sometimes it feels like he's disciplining. But God orchestrates and orders the seasons of our life. I don't know. Can I do this? Yes, you can. You know why? Because he is good, and he is for you. And he has promised that even if it feels like fire, he'll be that fourth man in the fire. And even if you feel like drowning, keep your eyes open. The waters are about to part. He is with you in this because he is for you, because you are precious to him. Life goes from aimless to meaningful when we recognize that God holds all the moments of our life. We got our priorities straight. Love God first and most. And we got our pursuit straight. It's not about earthly pleasures. It's about heavenly treasures, right? We got to say no to immediate pleasures because we want to pursue the right things. And today I want to close with this. Life is infused with purpose. There is no mistake that you make that he will not redeem for his glory. There is no pain, no tear that you shed that he will not redeem for his glory. That is beautiful. You can put your head on your pillow at night and sleep well knowing that it is good. Because the author of my story holds all the pieces of my life together. And everything, the good, the bad, the joy, the pain, the darkness and the light, the sorrows and disappointments, and the beautiful rejoicing, all of it has purpose and meaning. Let's stand this morning. As you're sitting here and processing all of this, I just want to charge you. If God fixes the events of our life and gives everything meaning, then you know what? Be present in every moment. Don't try to escape. Don't try to hide. Be fully engaged and present in every moment. And if God's appointed moments are all beautiful in their own way, then appreciate every moment. Appreciate the good, but don't forget to appreciate the bad. Ask that question, will this make me more like Jesus? That's the ultimate purpose of life. Appreciate every moment. If God is going to continually emphasize eternity to keep our longings in check, then you know what? Value each moment as it comes, because there it is and there it goes. Be present, be engaged, and value it. Squeeze every moment you can out of it. If God wants us to enjoy life, but he wants us to recognize that it's a gift from God, then you know what? Enjoy every moment as a blessing from him. Yeah, but it's a painful moment. But in that pain, I turned to you, Jesus. In that pain, I saw you, my Lord. In that pain, you didn't leave me, you walked with me. So I will lean into you, and you will hold me tight. And that's your moment to enjoy his embrace. But enjoy it as a blessing. And the last of all, if God is the one who gives lasting meaning to passing moments, changing our life from aimless to meaningful, then accept every moment as perfect. Why? Because God made it. God made it. Priorities, pursuit, and purpose. And my friends, this is how you and I are going to simplify our lives. And I want you to reflect for a few moments as we sing a song and as we just turn our hearts back in worship to him. And at the end, I'm going to call our prayer partners to come up, because some of you might just be feeling a little heavy and burdened. And I want to ask you, would you just take a moment and leave those cares and burdens behind? Leave them before the throne. You just heard there's not a thing you or I can do about it, but he can, because he holds all our moments together. So use your time with our prayer partners as a point of contact to release your faith and say, that's it. From this moment on, I'm going to trust you in even greater measure, because my life has purpose. Why? Because you made it. Let's worship. That he will never fail you, that we can do this, we can trust him, because he is the God who holds all our tomorrows in his hand. Nothing is beyond his control. I'm going to call the prayer partners up. And if you are carrying something that feels a bit too much, I urge you, come to the front. speak to one of our prayer partners and take a moment to release it. Release it. Use this as a place to tangibly release your faith and say, Lord, 2024 is a year of greater trust. It's a year of walking deeper and further with you, Lord, because you hold all my tomorrows. And I believe it. I believe it. Here, I give myself in complete surrender to you. If that's you, I want you to come and pray before you leave. And then leave free. Leave with joy, knowing that God has it. God has you. He has your days and moments. Amen. God bless you. Have an awesome rest of the day. And we'll see you next Sunday. Thank you.